Hi, and welcome to another edition of Switching Channels. I'm Miriam Gennari, and my co-host,
Nort Beckerman, author of A User's Guide to a Healthy Brain.
Joining us today is education power couple Denise Perrino, who taught theater for 34 years in Fairfax Public Schools, and her husband, Dr. Ralph Perrino, professor of psychology for 32 years at Nova and author of Issues, Strategies, and Concerns in Education Today. Well, today our topic is education. We're so excited. All the kids are going back to school. We should all be at ease. But parents, teachers, and students are raising their hands with a lot of different concerns. Nort, bring us up to speed on what's happening with education. What should we be talking about?
That's a big question, Miriam. It would take us years to even discuss it. But what my interest is that we have a lot of kids coming off of summer vacation, had a lot of fun. They're going back to school. I would like to see kids going back to school excited about learning new things, excited about what they're going to be involved with during the semester. It requires that requires a lot of work at home.
Well, Ralph, we talked a little before about the summer slide. Mm-hmm. Now it's too late. You can't have tutoring over the summer because school's in session.
Correct.
So how do parents deal with this in advance of that interim report where they go, whoa?
Well, it begins with the fact that the love of learning has to begin at home with the family. And we operate a tutoring service in Falls Church, and we encourage people to take a proactive approach to learning during the summer. If your child is having difficulty in the spring with a subject and you allow the entire summer to go by and do nothing, then you've got a serious problem in September and October. So developing a love of learning early in the process, keeping that love of learning going even when school is not in session, and maintaining continuity is the critical key.
Well, there's a lot of different ways to learn. And Denise, you taught in Fairfax County Schools theater for 34 years. Mm-hmm. You're also the co-author of Theater in the Core, or through
Drama to the Core.
Drama to the Core.
Yes, I help with that curriculum.
So tell me, how do you get kids excited, especially when, it can be arduous for them?
Well, quite often what you want to do is try to go with their strengths and what they're interested in. You could take any kind of core classroom techniques, and you try to put a little bit of drama in it, where you do movement, you take different theater games. I mean, that's what the Drama to the Core was about, was working with the core teachers and helping them with a little bit more tactile ways of exploring their subjects. And I think that quite often kids feel like they have to do things like one particular way, but there's so many different ways of learning that it's really a lot of fun.
Because educational researchers know that that children learn in different ways, mm-hmm. and offering different options for children to learn.
The value that says, I need to learn this, is part of a reward system. Mm-hmm. Your theater programs offer that reward system. They offer that reward system in terms of their own performance, in terms of their peers' performance, in terms of the audience, in terms of the parents applauding their performance.
I agree with all of that, but the stress right now is on performance in math and science and making sure that children perform well on tests. So how do you get around that?
As I've said so many times in presentations to my own students at the college, at the community college, the basics always apply. And I think I mentioned to you earlier that a book was written recently that I read by Tony Wagner titled The Global Achievement Gap, and he notes the 7 survival skills that will be necessary to compete in a global economy, and not one of them mentions math, science, or computers. It's all about critical thinking and problem-solving skills, working in collaborative groups like theater, oral and written communication skills like we're doing right here tonight. So yes, math and science is important, no doubt about it, but the basics apply. And if you leave high school or college without the ability to do those things, you will be in serious trouble at some later point.
Well, that's interesting, but there's nothing on the report card for creative thinking. The teachers don't say, well, I'm going to teach you creative thinking today.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you engender that in students? And one of the ways, in my mind, is just the love of learning, because the more you learn, the more
Exactly.
questions you have.
Right.
Okay, but parents steal the love of learning quite often when they're thinking about getting their
AP
children
classes,
into
IB
college
classes, exactly.
before they've even figured out the 4 R's. So Denise, what are some techniques you've used that have helped teachers and parents to manipulate their way through and benefit from what's available?
One of the things is to think about what's best for your child. Not to let them sit there and say, well, so-and-so's taking so many APs or IBs or all these different classes. What is it that they're interested in and that you want them to try to succeed at? Another thing is to try to take risks, try to learn something new, not to be afraid to do things not perfectly, because it's all right. It's all right not to be the most gifted person in the school.
Again, the basics apply. The core skills that are necessary to be successful in college are the basics that we all know that apply. I tell my students that when you leave here and go to a big university and they're sitting in an amphitheater with 300 students, you need to walk up to the professor the first day, shake his or her hand, introduce yourself, and say, I'm glad to be in this class. You need to be a self-advocate. That's something we don't teach our kids.
But Nort, that's something that you touched on about values in the home and teaching children to speak up and be interested in education, right?
Well, certainly to learn a skill and to be rewarded for learning a skill, to understand that going to school isn't a punishment. You know, but one of the things that we have here is that we have so much emphasis on passing these exams that we're creating stress.
Right.
And if you know anything about stress in the brain, it shuts down systems. So that is just the antithesis of learning.
Well, it's impossible to complete this conversation in a short 8 minutes. But Denise, can you give me just 3 tips for students this year, real quickly?
Okay, well, one thing is to be a self-advocate, but that does not mean to be pushy. If you have a question, you say, you let the teacher know you have a question, you're very specific about what your question is, and then you say thank you.
All right,
And
wonderful.
to be respectful.
Manners go a long way.
They
All
do.
right, we're going to continue
Totally.
this conversation. Again, I want to thank my guests, and I
you.
also want everyone to pick up Ralph Perrino's book, assisted by his wife, Denise. And thanks so much for joining Nort and I on Switching Channels. We're going to stick to this channel next week and talk about education again. Thanks for watching Switching Channels. I'm Miriam Gennari. That's Nort Beckerman. Back to the news desk.